A fatal farewell at Maple Leaf Gardens. The crowd at Maple Leaf Gardens was electric, the air thick with cigar smoke, sweat, and the feverish energy of a fight night. In the center of it all, under the glaring lights, two fighters danced the brutal ballet of boxing, their punches echoing like thunderclaps. Supposed to be another legendary bout, another night where fists did the talking and the crowd roared for blood and glory. But before the final bell would ring, the night would take a deadly turn. Hello, I'm Jay Nichol of Nichol Investigations, and this is an Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast, fictional episode of Whodunit Wednesdays in a Mick Mack mystery. Go back to the golden era of detective fiction and enjoy stories in the tradition of the greats of writing, from Agatha Christie to Raymond Chandler to John Creasy. These are short stories I hope you enjoy. Chapter 1. The Knockout That Killed. Maple Leaf Gardens was packed to the rafters. The scent of sweat, cigars, and excitement thick in the air. The main event of the night had the crowd in a frenzy. Jimmy the Kid Santoro versus Iron Eddie Malone. The two boxers circled each other under the harsh glare of the lights, gloves twitching, feet shuffling on the canvas, the energy in the building pulsing with every feint and jab. From his ringside seat, Chief Bernard Stewart watched intently, arms crossed over his trench coat. He'd been around long enough to know that boxing wasn't just about talent. It was about deals, arrangements, and sometimes things that didn't quite belong in the rulebook. Beside him, sports reporters jotted notes and bookies whispered odds, their eyes darting between the ring and the cash in their hands. Then it happened. Santoro threw a devastating right hook that sent Malone sprawling. The bell clanged, the crowd exploded, and the referee lifted Santoro's glove in triumph. But just as the cheers reached their peak, Santoro staggered, his face contorting in confusion. His legs buckled, and before anyone could react, he collapsed onto the mat, unmoving. A hush fell over the arena. Ringside doctors rushed in, checking for a pulse. Within moments, whispers spread. Santoro was dead. The referee knelt beside him, calling his name in vain. Reporters abandoned their notebooks for hushed, urgent phone calls. Chief Stewart took charge immediately, barking orders at the nearest constable. Get to the station. Call McCathie and MacNeely. Tell them to get here now. Keep everyone in their places. We're locking this down. Minutes later, Mick Mack arrived, stepping into an arena that had transformed from a battleground to a crime scene. The once rowdy audience was frozen in eerie silence, watching as the dead boxer was carried out in a stretcher. You two sure know how to ruin a good night out, Chief Stewart greeted them grim-faced. We've got a dead fighter, 1,000 witnesses, and not one of them saw a thing. Find out what happened. Chapter 2. A Trail of Clues. The preliminary autopsy confirmed the suspicion. Poisoning. But how? Fighters barely drank anything during a match. Their gloves never left their hands. Mick surveyed the crime scene. He walked the perimeter of the ring, hands in his pockets. The canvas, still stained from the night's fight, bore the ghostly imprint of Santoro's final fall. Blood, sweat, maybe something more sinister. This was done in the ring, Mick said, his voice slow. Somehow. That narrows it down, Mac quipped. Just a referee, a trainer, a bucket boy, a manager, a dozen handlers, and a crowd of thousands. Should be a cinch. They started with the usual suspects. Promoter Louis the Lip Carvelli, whose pockets were deep in the fight racket. Santoro's old sparring partner, Bruno the Bear DeMarco, who still nursed a grudge from a split decision loss. And Malone himself, the fighter Santoro had just beaten. Carvelli smirked when questioned. Fights get fixed in a million ways, boys. Poison? That's bad for business. You want a guy to lose, you make sure the judges know what to do. Malone scoffed at the idea he was involved. If I wanted to kill him, I'd have done it in the ring. I don't fight for points. I fight to put guys on their backs. DeMarco cracked his knuckles. If Santoro got what was coming to him, it wasn't from me. Let's just say, not everyone in this business has got clean hands. The questioning led them nowhere, till they talked to Frankie the Patch O'Hara, an old cut man who saw everything. Santoro was nervous before the fight, kept wiping his face like something was itching him. Didn't take Malone's handshake before the bell, and that ain't normal. Something clicked. What if it wasn't something he drank, Mick mused? What if it was something he touched? Chapter 3. The Underbelly of the Fight Game. Their search led them into the back alleys of Toronto's fight scene. Smoky gyms, betting parlors, places where money changed hands faster than fists. Inside the silver-gloved gym, an old school joint where retired fighters trained up-and-comers, Mick Mack watched the scene unfold. Young boxers hid heavy bags of bone-rattling force. Trainers barked instructions, and in the corner, old fighters nursed their aches with half-empty whiskey bottles. Mac, ever the optimist, decided to go undercover. You? A boxer? Mick asked, trying and failing to hide his smirk. Sure, I've got a mean left hook, Mac declared, demonstrating with a wild swing that nearly took out his spit bucket. The trainers at a dingy gym barely stifled their laughter. He ain't got a left hook, he's got 2 left feet. I can take a punch, though, Mac muttered, rubbing his jaw. Despite Mac's failed foray into the boxing world, their persistence paid off. Washed-up fighter Jimmy Shoeshine Lorenzo let slip that someone had tempered with Santoro's towel between rounds. That ain't something you see often, Lorenzo said, eyeing them warily. Fighter don't switch towels. They trust their cornermen, their own gear. Somebody gave him the wrong one. Who would have access to his towel, Mick pressed. Lorenzo took a swig from his bottle. Anyone who wanted to see him lose bad enough. But the real question is, who had the nerve to go that far? Chapter 4. A Deadly Touch. The crime lab confirmed it. A rare nerve agent, absorbed through the skin. That explains why he was wiping his face, Mick said. Every time he used that towel, he was rubbing poison into his skin. But it had to be something subtle. It needed to act fast, but not too fast. Had to be someone with access to the corner, Mac mused, flipping through his notes. The corner man, the bucket boy, the cut man, or maybe someone else with a stake in the outcome. The breakthrough came when they spoke to a janitor at the gardens. Saw Carvelli hand something off to a man in a trench coat before the fight, he muttered, chewing the end of a toothpick. Didn't think much of it at the time. A lot of backroom deals at these fights. Mick Mack now had their prime suspect. They needed proof. And that meant setting a trap. They spent the next day digging deeper into Carvelli's connections, visiting betting parlors and speaking with those who might know more. The consensus was clear. Carvelli was a middleman, not the mastermind. Someone higher up was calling the shots. The cut man, Frankie the Patch O'Hara, added another piece to the puzzle. Ain't the first time I've seen a fix go bad, he muttered. But this? Poison? That's a whole new level. Someone wanted Santoro out for good. And if Carvelli's in it, he's taking orders. From who? Mac asked. O'Hara shrugged. That's $1 million question. You two still breathing means you ain't got your answers yet. Mick Mack shared a look. They needed to set their traps soon, before someone else ended up dead. Chapter 5. A Fight Night Trap. With another bout scheduled at the Gardens, Mick and Mack returned, keeping a close eye on the usual suspects. The electric buzz of the crowd, the smell of popcorn and sweat all masked a darker game at play. Mick arranged for a fake tip-off, spreading word that another fighter had refused to throw a match and was planning to go to the police. It didn't take long for Carvelli to bite. His nervous glances, his quick movements. He was looking for an exit. Sure enough, Carvelli was lurking, his eyes darting around like a man who knew trouble was brewing. When he tried to sneak out mid-fight, Mick Mack followed. "Going somewhere, Louis?" Mick asked. Carvelli stiffened, then bolted. Mack, never one to miss an opportunity, tackled him into a concession stand, sending popcorn flying. "Looks like I can land a hit after all." Pinned under Mack's weight, Carvelli wheezed. "You got no idea what you're messing with." Mick leaned in. "Then why don't you enlighten us?" With Carvelli in cuffs, he finally cracked. All right. Wasn't supposed to go like this. He was supposed to lose, not die. But Santoro, he wouldn't play ball. He was supposed to take a dive, but he refused. So they made sure he wouldn't win another fight ever again. Mick frowned. They? Who's they, Carvelli? Carvelli hesitated. You think I'd still be breathing if I ratted him out? He let out a bitter chuckle. Let's just say the guys in charge of this game, they don't take kindly to loose ends. That was a confirmation Mick and Mack needed. This went deeper than Carvelli. But who exactly was pulling the strings? Chapter 6. Shadows on the Ropes. With Carvelli in custody and the fight-fixing operation exposed, Mick and Mack stood ringside, watching as another bout began under fairer terms. The referee's whistle blew and the fighters touched gloves. Looks better already, Mick said. Mack cracked his knuckles. Still think I could have been a contender. Mick smirked. Sure, Mack. Just as long as you never throw a punch. Mack pretended to take offense. I could take you. Only if I was handcuffed and unconscious. Mack grinned. I like those odds. As they left the arena, the familiar sounds of fight night filled the air. The cheers, the grunts, the clang of the bell. Another case solved. Another night in Toronto's fight game. But Mick had a feeling this wouldn't be their last round in the ring. They walked out onto Carlton Street, the cool night air refreshing after the heat of the arena. The case wasn't completely closed. Not if Carvelli's words were true. Someone higher up was pulling the strings, and that meant trouble. Mack adjusted his fedora. So what now? Mick sighed. We wait. Because sooner or later, who's ever really in charge, they'll come looking for us. As they turned the corner, a black sedan idled at the curb, its headlights dim. The engine hummed, the silhouette of a man barely visible behind the wheel. The moment Mick and Mack passed, the car pulled smoothly into traffic, following at a careful distance. Mick glanced over his shoulder, but didn't break stride. Looks like we won't be waiting long. Mack shoved his hands into his pockets, suppressing a grin. Well, ain't that considerate? Saves us the trouble of finding them. The sedan's tail lights flickered as it shadowed them through the darkened streets of Toronto. The game wasn't over. It had only just begun. Thank you for listening. This was an Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast, available wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Subscribe to Ontario Cold Cases today so you never miss an episode. Please share your thoughts and questions in the comments.